Welcome to the module on state role in ensuring full employment. In this particular module, we are going to discuss about the attainment of employment policy and thereby getting into the full employment concept along with the state's intervention. So it is said that in a capitalistic economy, the role of the government is very minimal or limited because some people believe that government should try to help the economy maintaining full employment and low inflation. And that is one of the most important oppositions of the capitalist classes. Moreover, the government also plays an important role to encourage as many people possible to work or to engage in the labor force, which will contribute to the employment scenario. So low levels of unemployment encourage economic growth and increase the standard of living, and that is one of the most important socialistic policy of a particular state. It also provides additional revenue from income taxes and taxes on expenditures because more income will lead to more purchasing power and thereby they will participate in the market and the size of the market will expand. Moreover, full employment is also important from the notion of the state because it aims the government to target where the zero level of employment will come up in terms of unemployment rate within the prescribed limit. So basically, when we talk about the full employment concept from a state perspective, then it is basically not possible to have 0% unemployment rate, but actually to have the output where all the resources are fully utilized. So this brings in some minimal level of unemployment still persist, even if the unemployment rate comes up to be zero in terms of the statistical figures. This boils down to the discussion on how the concept of employment has been conceived by the policymakers from a state perspective. Firstly, improving access to employers to access job seekers. This is basically giving them the opportunities and to create skills so that they can participate in the job market. Secondly, some kind of training and developmental programs can be done so that the structural unemployment, which is one of the reasons for long-term economic backwardness, can be eliminated. Thirdly, some kind of economic policies can be encouraged to encourage economic activity, which can be done in terms of construction, can be done in infrastructure or any other manufacturing sectors, which can boost up employment. Then we have requirements to obtain unemployment-related income support, particularly for the fixed income earners. Any kind of economic doles or any kind of transfer programs can be given. And moreover, financial incentives can be there for the work-related activities, where in terms of the unemployed people during the harvesting seasons or agricultural farmers during the non-harvesting seasons, all this kind of additional works or extra work can be given to the people. In that way, incentives for working environment can be created. This basically boils down to the types of unemployment. So whenever we are discussing about the full employment level, we are ensuring that it does not mean all people are employed from an economic perspective, because it may refer to 0% level of unemployment, but still there is a degree of unemployment still persist. And that boils down to the notion of frictional unemployment to begin with. Frictional unemployment is basically a certain level of unemployment which cannot be controlled because people will be between jobs, and it is actually healthy for an economy. Frictional unemployment basically allows people to feel free to quit a job so that look for a better one, and in that point of time we can say that a person can search for better positions. So whatever job he is pursuing, he may quit that, look for better positions. Even students might get placement, but they will offer for better jobs, so they are actually not taking up the current job offers. Maybe because of medical or any other family emergencies, migration may not be possible, so they quit the jobs which are taken up in the other places where they are not residing. So there are plenty of examples where frictional unemployment is a regular process of a dynamic economy. Because whenever an economy is going for any progression, the new jobs are being created, and frictional unemployment means looking for better and better jobs in the near future. So if the unemployment rate is too low, then economy is considered to be overhead, so inflation becomes more of a concern, because it boils down to the issue of a trade-off between inflation and unemployment. and unemployment rate is below 4% is considered to be full employment. So from a state perspective in a capitalistic society, it is said that full employment can be attainable provided that the inflation rate is controlled and thereby it is regulated by the policymakers. Next, we go for the structural unemployment. Structural unemployment is a perennial problem which is a long-term problem, where jobs are available but existing workers don't have the skill to fill in the jobs. It is because of the lack of the basic foundations, which can be lack of basic education or health standards or any related to the standard of living, which they are incapable of finding the proper jobs. So it can also happen if technology changes the nature of the work. Earlier the work was absolutely labor intensive. Now it becomes absolutely capital intensive, so it may lead to structural unemployment for a longer period of time. Like we have financial innovations in various sectors, but structural unemployment can come up. So even it is said that personal computers replaced stenographers and typists, and in Silicon Valley, companies look to India to find enough programmers to fill in their needs. So that means their need for a programmer or a kind of an algorithm that they will work on rather than any technicians or any kind of working classes. So this is basically coming up where the skill formation takes place, and accordingly the employment becomes more and more challenging. This basically gets into the concept of full employment as conceptualized by the state. So according to the full employment, this does not necessarily mean everyone has a job. This is very much clear from the perspective of Kaliki, from the perspective of Marx also, that everyone getting a job cannot be the desired outcome of any government, and that is also not being also propagated by the word full employment. Full employment is defined as a situation where unemployment equals actually non-accelerating inflationary rate of unemployment, which means that the rate of unemployment is constant or it is fixed at a point of time. It's neither falling nor increasing. So moreover, the rate of growth of unemployment is zero or the rate of unemployment is constant. And that is what is meant by the full employment level. So it is basically means the lowest unemployment rate and which have no effect on inflation. That means both of these variables, inflation and unemployment, needs to be controlled, which Kaleki has said that it is due to the manipulation of aggregate demand it can take place, but actually it is the Keynesian economics which makes it clear that unemployment and inflation can be adjusted together. Then it is also said that employing too many people is likely to result in too much inflationary pressure, because people will have more purchasing power and then too much money will be chasing after too few goods, and thereby the spending habits of the people will rise. So this will eventually lead to high rate of inflation, which will make the economy to be unstable. The most important point that comes in that how full employment becomes relevant or important in a society which is basically governed by the state. Because here the state intervention becomes very important to ensure full employment or to take care even of the business leaders. So first of all, unemployment is a devastating experience for individuals and society. This is absolutely an economic rationale which says that unemployment has a lot of drawbacks, where jobs are inadequate, they are lower paid, exploitative practices comes in, and even there is underutilization of resources. That means there is basically underpaid workers. So in a less developed countries and surprisingly in some major advanced economies, low unemployment rates can be associated with a disappointing labor market. But it is said, according to the capitalistic view also, that in some of the economies which are advanced nations, even if the unemployment rate comes down in a very negligible level, it may not be worthy for the economy to sustain in the long run. Because people are officially registered as being employed, but they may be actually working few hours a week or in substandard conditions with incomes barely beyond subsistence and poor prospects for improvement. This is again going back to the quality of the jobs that is being offered. And this is one of the Kaliki's opposition, that we can go for full employment according to economics or according to Keynesian rationality, where everybody will get the jobs and economy will be sustainable. But is it so? because the quality of the jobs matters. It is the quality of the jobs which says that it may be due to the few hours of work, maybe due to the underpaid workers, the living conditions are not being improving, they are stagnating, and it shows a kind of a stagnation in the economy even if majority of the people are employed. So these are some of the drawbacks of ensuring full employment in a society where the quality parameter is being compromised. And that has been pointed out by Kalecki in the discussions of full employment theories. Full employment also relates to the set of indicators beyond the unemployment rate, which gives a true sense how tight the labor market is. Here, tight the labor market is implies that the labor market has no choice, has no free mechanisms to ensure any fluctuations in the wage rates. Because here everybody employed where the demand supply apparatus or the tools will nothing much to do with the equilibrium or ensuring equal justice for others. This basically boils down to what are the policies which can be proposed to ensure full employment, taking in view the drawbacks as well as taking in view the political dimensions. Firstly, to have a clear commitment sustained by the consensus to implement a coherent country-specific strategic policy mix. This is very important because every country has a different economic system. Every country possesses a different political ideology. So depending on that, a policy mix is warranted. It cannot be generalized for all nations to go for full employment policy as a targeted output where the political ideologies differ in terms of capitalistic society or in terms of a mixed society. One objective of the symposium where the full employment discussions were being held is to learn the lessons from the country's experience and finally go for a comprehensive employment policy package. This is because done where most of the advanced economies are largely dominated by the MNCs and where they're in the innovation-driven stage of growth. So given their stage of growth, any kind of discouragement on the big leaders or on the superpowers might not be beneficial for the economy to sustain in the long run. But this might not be the story for an economy which has been totally dependent on domestic investment or indigenous growth over a longer period of time. For example, India, where we can consider FDI to come up, but domestic investment also plays an important role. So their full employment may be attainable, but the quality of the jobs needs to be ensured. So closer the economy to full employment, better the chances of vulnerable and discriminated groups to have access to opportunities in the labor market. That means this is one of the opposition which Kalecki said in a capitalistic society, because it is providing some kind of empowerment on the working class to actually justify their needs and also understanding their needs. Because understanding their needs and raising a voice will make the capitalistic model to come down or to erode over time. So basically, when full employment becomes one of the rights of the economy, then the vulnerable sections become more and more pronounced and they basically come up into the real sector and they come up to the limelight to access to opportunities in the labor market, because they will also grant rights and they will try to access all the benefits that are available in the labor market. So this kind of mainstreaming the vulnerable sections in the society will make the capitalist classes to oppose any such provisions or any such steps towards full employment. And also in this particular discussion, we says that at very low levels of unemployment, rate of recruitment of less qualified workers, female workers, and other discriminated groups becomes higher. Because it is seen that whenever it is job for all, then the quality compromisation comes up and thereby employment becomes one of the basic right of the individual, irrespective of the skills required. So full employment enhances the chance of success in aggregate because it is not taking care of particularly specialized ones. It is not identifying any specialized individual in terms of its capabilities or in terms of its credentials, but it measures targeting skills and other obstacles that less employable group face as they look for a job. So thereby we can say full employment is basically making everybody accessible. So since 1964, the Convention on Employment Policy number 122 calls upon ILO member states to declare and pursue an active policy designed to promote full, productive and freely chosen employment as the major goal. That means this is an active policy in the sense taking care of the political dimensions, taking care of the interest of the business leaders, where productive capacity needs to be exhausted. That is very much true, but not at the cost of quality. And that can be one of the balance between the Keynes, Marx and the Kalikis approach. The convention does not prescribe what the content of such active policy should be, but it would be taken up from the needs and circumstances of the country, from the country's position, the country's growth records, and also from the macroeconomic parameters like the potentials of investment, the trade participation ratios, and the enterprise policies, so that labor market interventions are directly targeting the unemployed. That means the active policy is balancing because it does not make a prefinding or a kind of a universal or generalized policy that all nations will follow this. The nation's basic characteristics, the economic and the political ideologies needs to be recognized, and then the policy needs to be designed. And these policies also will take care of the interest of the business leaders and also will be looking after the marginalized. And that is how a balancing policy needs to be done from the state intervention. No single measure per se is likely to be sufficient to set the economy as a stable and a sustainable path to full employment. So that is what state wants to come up in a consensus, that the political dimension, economic dimensions are not to be in a dichotomy. There should not be any kind of dichotomy between these two ideologies, that political obstacles are there, economic rationalities are there. No, it should come up in a comprehensive manner. It should come up in a joint manner. So no single measure will be there to address this issue. It will be done in a balanced manner. So this can be attained not via decreasing in the interest rate, nor opening of new training centers, but by a comprehensive policy package that comes in. And thereby the role comes in. Now we open for the interventions of the state in order to ensure full employment, taking care of the interests of both the capital owners and the working class. So in this context, the first policy that crops up is the role of state and fiscal policy, and under that we concentrate on expansionary fiscal policy. This fiscal policy, which is considered to be expansionary, is basically looking for reducing the tax and increasing the public spending, and thereby reduces unemployment to be taken up. So the government can create jobs by increasing spending on the government projects, and the policy can also provide more income to spend by cutting tax, which may be a socialistic move. But this move may be welcoming for a nation which is following a mixed economic system. Thereby the country's basic characteristics needs to be identified, and thereby the policy can be prescribed. Moreover, when we go for the fiscal policy, also we want to ensure that what type of issues can arise. An important question arises regarding what can governments do to promote full employment in order to stabilize the prices and stabilize the growth. So this basically goes to a discretionary fiscal policy which makes deliberate effects on changes in the tax and the government spending, so that the three parameters can be at par. The first parameter is ensuring full employment. The second parameter is definitely price stability. And the third one is not at the cost of decreasing the economic growth. Though these are measured in quantum or in numbers, the most important is the quality factor which is embedded across these three parameters. Then we have fiscal policy, the government purchase tax. All of these are very much inherent in the process, but also it results to increase in the unemployment, where there is the rise in the government expenditure, reduction in unemployment, holding other variables constant. So here we find out that if we increase the government consumption expenditure, then in most of the cases it will result to high rate of inflation, because of the debt issues will arise, and so unemployment can increase. But if we go for investment expenditure increase, then it can have a multiplier effect on the growth rate of income, and employment will come up. So this basically goes into the saying that employment potentials are taken up at par when government comes for a fiscal policy. Now we go for the monetary policy, which is also very much in tune with ensuring full employment, taking care of the views of all the stakeholders. Monetary policy, as we consider, is a control of the quantity of money available in the economy and what type of money are being printed, and the regulation and the control is being considered. So it is said that any economic statistics, for example, gross domestic product or GDP, or the rate of inflation, or industry-specific growth rates, all are affecting the monetary sector. Because it is the real sector which is the fiscal policy, and the monetary sector coming from the monetary policy, both of them must balance each other. So monetary policy will be used by a set of tools used by the nation's central bank to control the overall money supply, promote economic growth, and employ strategies by revising the interest rate or the banking reserve requirements. So we can see that how the monetary policy and the fiscal policy can work hand in hand. Moreover, a central bank may revise the interest rate it charges, and as the interest rate fall, investment potentials can be encouraged, and that will create a more enlarged market, and also it will take care of the business leaders, as it is being said in a capitalistic society, and also banks can come up with selling the government bonds or by buying them under open market operations. Also these are needed for maintaining a good balance with the MNCs. And foreign exchange management also comes up within the central bank's policy. So all these measures are taking care of the business leaders or the big MNCs, but at the same time, it also takes care of the marginalized. So a comprehensive policy package is warranted depending upon the characteristics of the economy. So as a result, some of the state-oriented policies can be proposed or can be encouraged to ensure full employment. Firstly, the government should put emphasis on the infrastructure building, as it is said, on railways, roads, urban transport, power, telecom, and thereby concentrate on national infrastructure pipeline. All these initiatives will be generating employment and boost output because they have a multiplier phenomena attached in it, where the government of India is encouraging various projects on it. PM Gati Shakti is one such example, which is a transformative approach for economic growth and sustainable development, because it takes care of the inviting the foreign direct investment in the infrastructural sector, as well as taking care of the basic building of social infrastructure. And moreover, the approach by the clean energy and also creating entrepreneurial opportunities for all. So the private owners as well as the working class both are taken up together in a comprehensive policy package, which can be one of the motivations of the state. Moreover, the two state-oriented policies which are very much in applications or in implementation, one of them is Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, which is facilitating self-employment. Free loans are being taken up, and it is to ensure the small enterprises to come up and to actually participate in the decision making. This is taking care of the small business units to crop up in a society. And then we have Garib Kalyan Rozgar Abhigyan, which is launched in the year of 28 June 2020 to provide employment and opportunities for the migrant workers, particularly taking care of the marginalized. So comprehensive policy package on the one hand, boosting the MNCs, making the country to be a conducive investment climate for the foreign investors, and on the other hand, also taking care of the marginalized. So basically in this module, we actually come up with the concept of employment, where we actually consider how full employment can be considered from an economic perspective. Nevertheless, a single measure will not be able to explain full employment from political and economic measurements. It should be a comprehensive package where the political and the economic measurements must go hand in hand. Types of unemployment also are considered, because full employment does not necessarily mean that everybody has got the jobs. It is basically the existence of frictional unemployment to a certain extent, and even structural unemployment if technology changes are very much rapid and dynamic. So concept of full employment has to be taken up from country specific issues, not at a generalized policy. So any nation which has a different economic systems, that's need to be recognized, whether it's a capitalistic or a socialistic system or a mixed economy. And thereby a policy package can be proposed which should be active in terms of taking care of the interest of the business leaders or the capitalist classes, as well as taking care of the marginalized. And that is where the intervention of the state lies in. So in terms of the policies, some of the policies which are state-oriented policies, fiscal and monetary policies are also warranted to ensure this employment or full employment status. So most importantly, a balancing act has to be done by taking care of the Kalicki's approach, Marx approach, and on the other hand, Keynesian approach to make the economy sustainable and a safe future to live in.